The start of the midterm election season. There it is, your voice, your vote 2022. In less than 24 hours, voters will head to the polls in Ohio and in Indiana to pick their party's nominees for offices in Congress and other state offices. In Indiana, where Republicans currently control 7 of the 9 congressional districts in that state, GOP hopefuls are eyeing what has historically been a Democratic stronghold. Indiana won just outside of Chicago, up in the top left-hand corner, the northwest corner of the state, where the Democratic incumbent Frank Mervan is running for re-election right across the Illinois state line from Chicago. Joining me now, State House and politics reporter for the Indy Star, Kaitlin Lange, and Ohio politics reporter for USA Today Network, Haley Bemiller. So, Kaitlin, let me begin with you. You've been following this Indiana 1 race closely. What's the most interesting thing about it? What's there to watch closely, do you think? What should we be watching out for?
Yeah, this is a really interesting district because it's gone Democratic for almost a century now. So, if Republicans are able to win this one, that would be pretty huge game changer there. This district, it is getting a little bit closer over the years between the two candidates, but Frank Mervan still won by 16 points back in 2020. So it's really interesting that this has been labeled as a competitive race and one to watch. So I think we'll see if Republicans win this race. I'm sure it's a pretty good sign that they are going to win back Congress. Right. And it does look, signs are pointing to a big Republican year. Kaitlin, thanks for that. Haley, Ohio, boy, that's a big circus that's going on out there in the Senate race and other places. The former President Donald Trump out there endorsing one of the candidates. What is going to shape up in that race? It still looks very close. A lot of undecided voters out there in the Senate race, right?
Yeah, we've seen some polls come out since Trump endorsed J.D. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, in this race that show him catapulting into the lead of the pack, which came at a really good time for him because he had been struggling. But as you noted, these polls are also showing that a lot of people are still undecided. I think for some Republican voters, Trump's endorsement was good enough for them, but there were a lot of other folks who were still skeptical of Vance because of comments he made in 2016 about the former president and his supporters. And there are also just a lot of divided allegiances among some other candidates. You have folks who are fond, for example, of Josh Mandel, a former state treasurer here. You had other people who just wanted to do their own research, and up until the past few weeks, they really hadn't been paying close attention aside from the ads that have been pretty much all over their TV.
Yeah. J.D. Vance, I should say, you talk about what he said in 2016. I was sitting next to him on the set at ABC News. He was on our election coverage, and he was condemning Donald Trump. Now, can't get enough of him. Kaitlin, let's go back to Indiana and on the Trump effect. In 2008, barely Barack Obama broke a stranglehold that the Republican Party had on that state in presidential elections and won it. Of course, it's gone way back to its traditional role as a bedrock Republican state. But what impact has Donald Trump and Trumpism and what he's done, how he's transformed the Republican Party had on Indiana, do you think?
Sure. It's had a pretty big impact, I'd say. I think especially if you look at our state house races, I'd argue his biggest contribution is that he's made some Republicans more prone to question the establishment. In our state house races this year, we have more Republican lawmakers facing primary challengers than in at least the past decade. So there's very much this air in this party of, do we necessarily trust the establishment? And I think a lot of that does go back to President Donald Trump. Obviously there are some other factors as well, such as the handling of the COVID pandemic, but there's no question that he's changed the Republican Party in Indiana.
And American politics, the first president ever elected without having served in elective office or served in the military. He's an outsider, and that seems to be the feeling that the country needs more of that. So, Haley, in Ohio, obviously Donald Trump has been campaigning there, as you pointed out, for J.D. Vance. He seems to have changed Ohio as well. It was a state that Democrats could win. Now it looks completely out of reach altogether. What's happened there?
Yeah, so a couple interesting things about Ohio. First, as you pointed out, this used to be more of a bellwether state. People considered Ohio purple for a long time. Really not the case anymore. Trump won here in 2016 and 2020 by 8 points. So it was not only a win, it was a decisive win. And he's also really transformed the Republican Party here. This is a state where John Kasich was governor. The outgoing Senator Rob Portman is very much a traditional establishment conservative. And whether it's Vance or most of his opponents in this Ohio GOP primary, you're really seeing a different kind of Republican running for this seat. And it's indicative of this larger trend of more Ohio Republicans being interested in kind of the Trump wing of the party and moving away from the Kasich era, the Portman era.
Absolutely. The no more moderate Republicans are very few of them. They're hard to find. Kaitlin, in Indiana, well, what's your sense of the Democrats' message, of their ability to communicate and connect with Indiana's voters? Are they, in some states, it seems that they have been outmatched by Republicans, especially on the cultural issues, right? Education and immigration. How are Democrats doing out there in Indiana?
Yeah, obviously, we are a very, very red state. And I think it's interesting that you brought up the social issues, because Democrats are kind of trying to counter that in Indiana and bring up their own social issues. Here, it's marijuana is the topic that Democrats have pivoted to. Our Democratic Senate candidate, who is unopposed in the primary, he just released an ad last week, smoking a joint in a backyard across the border. So in Illinois. So it's interesting that Democrats are trying to use similar tactics as Republicans are, just using their own social issues instead. But besides that, I think they're really trying to not ignore these rural areas that they have in the past, and realize that they do need to go everywhere if they are ever going to get some wins. But again, we have no Democratic statewide officials here. Such a Republican state, so it's an uphill battle for Democrats for sure.
And there used to be the Bai family, Birch and Evan Bai. There were Democratic statewide office holders. Maybe there will be again with the stoner vote out there in Indiana. But look, State House politics reporter for the Indy Star, Kaitlin Lange, and Ohio politics reporter for the USA Today Network, Haley Bemiller. Thank you very much for taking us and giving us a little bit of an inside look at the primaries tomorrow. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.